I have no changes.
There was actually a change. Under number 11, it says Commissioner Jones reminded people about open enrollment. I don't think he really cared about open enrollment.
Okay, we'll get that changed.
Thanks.
No. Okay.
What was he talking about?
Very true.
Okay. Next item on the agenda would be Hayes Employee Service Recognition.
All right, good evening, Commissioners, and welcome to those visiting Commission chambers this evening. At this time, we would like to honor city employees for their years of service to the residents of Hayes. We ask that all employees stay until the end for a group picture. If you'd come in behind the podium, start with Toby and go through and get your picture taken, please. Beginning with the 5-year awards, Sierra Rupp. Sierra started with the City of Hayes as a part-time receptionist in the City Manager's office in 2011. Sierra was promoted in 2012 to the Police Department as Administrative Assistant. Next 5 years, Brent Barnett. Brent has been a part-time police officer with the City of Hayes since 2010. Next 5 years, Brandon Woods. Brandon began with the Hayes Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter in 2011 and was hired as a career firefighter that same year. Next up, Travis Johannes. Travis joined the city as a volunteer firefighter in 2011. 1 month later, he took on the role of career firefighter. Next for 5 years, Bronson Scott. Bronson began in 2011 as a recycling collector for the city and still serves in that capacity today. Colin Rowe. Not here yet. We can go back to him. Let me know if he does show up, though.
He'll show us far outside.
All right.
Might be
Let me know.
I'm working.
Yep. So we'll move on to 10-year awards. First up for the 10-year awards, David Younger. David joined the city as a parks maintenance worker in 2005. He advanced to a maintenance worker 2 in 2010, and David was recently promoted in 2016 to a parks technician. Next up for 10-year awards, Carrie Tiernan. Carrie began with the City of Hayes as the golf course foreman in 2006. He still holds that position today. Next for 15-year awards. First up, Chad Reuter. Chad started with the city in 2000 as an information systems technician. In 2004, he became the IT director and continues to serve in that role. Next up for 15-year, Brandon Wright. Brandon joined the City of Hayes as a police officer in 2001. In 2005, he was promoted to police sergeant, and 6 years later, he was promoted to police lieutenant.
Colin is here now, too.
All right, let's go back to Colin. Colin Rowe, 5 years, Colin Rowe. Colin joined the City of Hayes in 2011 as a communications officer. In 2013, Colin became a police officer for the Hayes Police Department. Next up for 15-year, Kirk Klein. Kirk began with the city in 2001 as a firefighter. In 2007, he became a fire lieutenant and was promoted in 2014 to fire captain. Next 15-year, Tom Roy. Firefighter Tom Roy has been a firefighter with the city since 2001. Next 15-year, Mike Balker. Mike started as a parks maintenance worker with the city in 2001. In 2010, he advanced to a maintenance worker 2. Then Mike was promoted this year to parks technician. Next 15-year, Chris Rhodes. Chris joined the city in 2001 as a parks maintenance worker. In 2002, he was promoted to parks technician, and in 2010, he was promoted to his current position as parks supervisor. And the final 15-year, Mark Pfeiffer. Mark started with the city in 2001 as a water plant trainee. He became a water plant operator 1 in 2002 and was promoted in 2004 to plant operator 2. Moving on for the 20-year awards, first up, Mitch Burns. Mitch became a Hayes police officer in 1995, and in 2007 he was promoted to police sergeant and still holds this position today. Next 20-year award, Tim Hickert. Tim joined the city of Hayes in 1995 as a service mechanic for the Public Works Department. He was promoted in 2015 to shop foreman. Finally, on 20-year awards, Curtis Weber. Curtis started with the city in 1996. During his 20-year tenure, he has held the positions of refuse collector, maintenance worker, equipment operator, and inspector. Moving on up in tenure for 25 years. First up, Mark Winholtz. Mark became a maintenance worker 1 with the service department in 1991. In 1998, he took on the role of service equipment operator and was promoted to his current position, service division foreman, in 2008. Next 25-year awards, Steve Barnes. Steve joined the city as a refuse collector in 1991. He then took on the role of cemetery caretaker in 1992 and has been serving in that position since. And finally, but certainly not least, 30-year awards. First up is Don Stayskull. Don joined the city in 1986. He has been promoted several times during his 30 years, serving as a maintenance worker, equipment operator, field foreman, water and sewer supervisor, service supervisor, and his current position as the service superintendent. Final 30-year award tonight, Mr. Dan Roberts. Dan started as a service utility worker 2 in 1985. Dan has worked his way up in the city since 1985, holding positions of refuse packer operator, truck driver for both service and solid waste divisions, equipment operator, equipment driver, and most recently, solid waste foreman. That is all we have tonight. Picture up front, please.
Happens every week to me.
That looked pretty.
It's better to sit in front of you.
Come on in. Exactly. Come on, make your way in. Be a single file or from one
Box here, just get tight.
We're going to take a few of them, okay? Just about halfway.
Well, it's probably better that way. There. One stand by, please, officer.
Make sure you get the camera here.
Cancel out the mayor, I agree with that.
Thank you, guys.
We're adjourned.
Oh, you mean there's more to this meeting? I thought this was the only thing on the agenda.
Good cookies.
I'll forgive you this time.
Knock it off.
All right. It's awesome to see all those employees that have been here for the amount of time, whether it's 5 or 30 years. That's, they don't get enough recognition, I think, in the community. These people who wants to do all the work behind the scenes, we appreciate very much what they do. So next item on the agenda would be financial statement for the month of September 2016.
Thank you. This report contains the financial summaries of the revenue and expenditure activities for the City of Hayes, month ended September 30, 2016. Revenues in September totaled $2,332,000, a decrease of $161,000 compared to the same period as last year. One notable area of increased revenue over September of 15 was sewer service charges. Those are up $32,699, or about 17.8%. Notable areas of revenue decrease. Golf course revenue was off $6,600 when compared to this time last year. Year-to-date golf revenue is down $22,000. According to Parks Director Jeff Boyle, that's mainly greens fees. That is something going on across the country. They are down. Play is down, so that will reflect that. Miscellaneous revenue for general government fell $20,450 due to GIS expenditures reimbursement from Ellis County at this time last year. And court costs were down $4,000 compared to the same period a year ago. Expenditures in September totaled $2.6 million, which is an increase of $1.26 million as compared to 2015. Some notable areas of increased expenditure when we look at September of 15. September included 3 payrolls this year. Therefore, salaries and benefits were up across all funds, amounting to about $386,000. Another large ticket item this month was the start of the Oak Street Waterline project, increasing water reserve expenditures by $363,668. That was the transfer we did that you approved out of water reserve into the capital improvement fund to start that project. Airport improvement expenditures increased $157,524 as compared to this month last year due to the final payment for the airport snow removal equipment. And equipment expenditures for the Public Works Service Division increased $22,000 due to upgrades to the 29th and Vine stoplights, pedestrian crossing light repair on Hall, and repairs to the message board. One notable area of decreased expenditure, there were no areas actually of decreased expenditure, anything significant anyway. Month-to-date general fund sales tax collections were at $605,791. That's a decrease of $38,959 as compared to last year. Year-to-date general fund collections are at $5,360,602. That's down a negative $263,285, or a negative 4.68% as we compare to this time last year. 10 of the last 12 months experienced a notable decrease in sales tax receipts, totaling a negative $365,000, or a negative 4.85%. The report of quarter-to-date sales tax collections by industry classification was down negative $40,292, or a negative 2.06%. Those top 10 represent 72.5% of the total quarter-to-date sales tax distribution. The Finance City Clerk's Office invested $4 million in maturing or renewing certificates with a weighted average interest rate of 0.82%. The portfolio of certificates of deposit on September 30, 2016 totaled $53.3 million, with a weighted average interest rate of 0.62. That's up 0.34 from a year ago. Total balance on a money market account on September 30 was $1 million with a current yield of 0.2. Total investments are up $200,000 when compared to this time last year. And also, before you, we were notified late after the 2015 audit was completed. You have a note to schedule of expenditures. It's part of the audit that we would ask you put in your audit book you received when Adams Brown Baron Ball was here. When I got notification that we needed an audit on the PFC charges out at the airport, I inquired to the FAA as to how we were notified, and they told us we weren't notified because that was the first year we had started collecting. So I contacted Melissa, and she was able to do this on short notice. There's no motion needed tonight on this. It's simply an add-on page to your audit. There were no other numbers changed. You just simply had to go in and make sure everything matched up with the PFC charges.
Would move that we accept the financial statement as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones. Any questions?
Question for Mr. Rupp. Exactly what were you talking about putting in our budget book?
The audit, I would ask that you put that in your audit. It's a page that was laying on your desk.
Oh, I
when you
see,
came
okay.
in.
I didn't realize that.
It's just an additional page.
Okay, I got it. Thank
Okay.
you.
I shared, so I shared an article from today's Lawrence Journal World. Our sales tax reports are contrary, believe it or not, to that of the state. Lawrence has had, in Douglas County, has had a lot of retail development, particularly building material centers. Theirs is up 6.1%, Topeka's is up 3.4%, Manhattan 2.3%, Salina's in here, it's up as well. The only one in their cities that they hold was Lenexa, down 3.6%. So we're running counter to our peers in the state.
That's interesting. The question I have on the PFC collected, what again can we use that for?
You can use it for qualified airport improvements projects.
Okay.
And so, I believe the two major projects we're using those funds towards, or to repay ourselves for, is the reconstruction at the airport, the building, and the runway. Don't remember the
Crossing runway.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-1. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizen comments. Moving on, next item on the agenda would be the consent agenda. We don't really have anything, so we don't have to worry about that. I guess the next item would be the Hayes Extended Stay Hotel Partners CID request.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. We are in receipt of a petition for the creation of two community improvement districts, or CIDs. So I'm here to present those. Again, this evening with us is Ferdinand Neiman of the law firm White Goss, representing the developer. We did expect Gina Rekoff to be here. She must be running late, our special counsel. And then the Ellis County Coalition Director Aaron White. Wanted to quickly review with you what a CID is. Kansas Statute 12-6A26 for CIDs was enacted in 2009 by the Kansas Legislature as an economic incentive for businesses to use to finance certain projects within cities and counties. Revenue to fund those projects is derived from sales tax or special assessments in the district created. Sales tax can be up to 2% added to the existing retailer sales tax in the district, with a maximum life of 22 years. City's economic development policy provides that these will be pay-as-you-go incentive, meaning the developer will pay the cost of the project up front and then be reimbursed for eligible costs by the CID. Therefore, there is no monetary liability on the part of the City of Hayes. Partial list of the eligible costs as defined by the city's economic development policy include public buildings, infrastructure, parking, landscape, and the promotion of tourism and recreational or cultural activities. As you may recall, the City of Hayes has 2 existing CIDs within the city limits. There is a 2% CID at the Holiday Inn Express, which has started collections in late 2010 by the same developer submitting this petition, and a 1% CID at Big Creek Crossing that began in mid-2015. So the city is in receipt of a petition for 2 CIDs submitted by the developer Hayes Extended Stay Hotel Partners LP. They propose a development divided into 2 separate projects. The first is to construct a Town Place Suites Hotel directly to the north of High Hop and the Hampton Inn. This involves construction of a 41,000 square foot extended stay hotel with 80 rooms. The second project involves construction of a 5,400 square foot Travel Plaza convenience store to the immediate northeast of the hotel previously mentioned. And you may have noticed that construction of the Travel Plaza underway. Developer of the Travel Plaza, JT Travel Plaza LLC, is not asking for any incentives and will not be the beneficiary of any incentives requested under this petition. The first CID, noted as CID 1 on the graphic, would be formed on the Travel Plaza and Hotel. This would be a 1% CID sales tax on each of the 2 properties. Those revenues would be used to reimburse the developer of the hotel on a pay-as-you-go basis for CID eligible costs associated with the hotel only. The second CID, noted as CID 2 on the graphic, would be imposed on the hotel only and would be an additional 1% sales tax for a total of 2% CID sales tax at the hotel. Again, these revenues would be used to reimburse the developer of the hotel on a pay-as-you-go basis for CID eligible costs associated with the hotel only. So summarizing the cost-benefit analysis that Ferdinand put together, there are some numbers that are of some significance. Total cost of the project for the hotel project is $9.6 million. The developer is asking for reimbursement of $1.733 million of the CID eligible expenses. The Hotel Travel Plaza together are estimated to generate $1.56 million of CID sales tax over the 22-year period, and the hotel is expected to produce $585,000. They are predicting to create 23 jobs at the hotel, which includes managers, housekeepers, front desk auditors, and laundry. The analysis indicates there will be a total of $939,000 of hotel real estate property taxes realized for the city over the 22-year period. There was a question last week as to the collection of property taxes for the district. It was confirmed that all new properties will contribute both property tax increment and TDD sales tax to the 2 bond issues now existing. Those bonds are now callable. Therefore, any excess generated in this district will be used to prepay the bonds. We really have no way of knowing when those might fall off. I believe the TDD bonds will be done around 2020 or 2021, but I don't have a feel for when the economic development bonds will retire, given the call feature just started in 2015. When the TDD bonds are retired, the 3/4% TDD sales tax will go away, and when the economic development bonds are retired, the real estate tax increment will belong to the city. As far as the estimate in the analysis of the $939,000 in property taxes, we believe that to be a true depiction in that the city will receive those funds. Just know that they are already committed to the payment of the economic development bonds. Mr. Neiman's estimates last week indicated sales tax of a little over $8 million. However, he did find a small problem with a couple of columns in his worksheet and has since updated that to $6.63 million of city sales tax revenue. And finally, answering one other question from last week, estimates indicate about $2.9 million of transient guest tax over that same 22-year period being collected.
And Kim, there is one thing I forgot to ask, and it doesn't matter. The great thing about hotels, they also collect personal property tax on all the stuff in it. So there'll be even more revenue from this facility that's not accounted for.
I didn't know
Oh yeah, all the TVs and the beds and everything's taxed.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
So this week you have 3 options. The first option would be to approve the resolutions that are before you for each of the 2 CIDs petitioned to set a hearing of November 22nd on the creation of the CIDs. Those are presented as two different agenda items, and we will have language up on the screen for each one of those separately. The second option would be to decline the petitions for the CIDs but not approving the resolutions, or you can provide other direction to city staff. Special Counsel Gina Rekoff with Gilmore Bell, as well as our City Attorney John Bird, have reviewed all the documentation submitted. The owners have signed the petitions, and all other aspects of it comply with the requirements of KSA 12-6A26 and the city's economic development policy. Therefore, it is the recommendation of city staff that you approve the resolutions calling for public hearings to consider the creation of the two CIDs requested on Tuesday, November 22nd, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve Resolution 2016-005, calling and providing for giving of a public notice for a hearing on November 22nd, 2016, on the advisability of creating the Hayes Extended Stay Hotel Partners Community Improvement District.
Second. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Swallers, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any other questions on that, guys?
Just a comment. I like that breakdown you had at the very beginning of jobs, and a lot of complete information there as far as projected sales tax revenues and things like that. That kind of paints a pretty nice picture, I think.
I just want to commend the Aaron White and the coalition. I think this has been a pretty seamless issue and a very transparent and very upfront numbers, and they're good to see. Looking forward to another hotel in town.
You know, when we started talking about this, a lot of people that really does Hayes need another hotel, and as all of us know, we almost lost Special Olympics because of space, hotel space, and you know, from the numbers you showed us, it looks like, you know, we can use it, and I hope it's, you know, if it passes, I hope it's something that really contributes to our, you know, community in a good way. And I like what, you know, you guys are asking for a CID. I'm not gonna lie, that's not my favorite thing for you guys to ask for, but at least you have in there what you're asking for. And in times past, when we passed something like this, we didn't really get that. And I think that, you know, Aaron White's group and a lot of the stuff that we've changed over the last couple of years has definitely helped that, so I appreciate that. I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. This is 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'll tell you something else. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Musil, I move we approve Resolution 2016-006, calling and providing for giving of a special notice of a hearing November 22nd, 2016, on the advisability of creating the Hayes Extended Stay Hotel Partners 2 Community Improvement District.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Waller, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Next item on the agenda is Hayes Investors LLC CID request.
Okay, the city is in receipt of a petition for a CID submitted by the developer Hayes Investors LLC. And Mr. Dave Christie, who just sat down, is with us tonight as well with Ferdy tonight. If you recall, this is the same developer that initiated the Home Depot, IHOP, and Hampton Inn improvements. They propose a development consisting of approximately 73,000 square feet of retail space directly to the north of Home Depot. The district would also encompass the lot directly to the east of the 73,000 square foot development. So we're talking about these two properties here. This would be the 73,000 square feet planned right now. This would be future development, as the petition indicated. The 73,000 would consist of a 50,000 square foot building to be used by a national retailer and another 23,000 square feet of retail, according to the petition. This would be a 1% CID sales tax on each of the properties. Those revenues would be used to reimburse the developer on a pay-as-you-go basis for CID eligible costs. There is a slight twist on this request. The CID request is prior to a named project or retailer. The belief is that it would allow the developer to more aggressively market the property. Therefore, the developer has written into the petition that in the event certificates of occupancy for 73,000 square feet of retail space are not issued within 36 months of approval of the CID, then the CID will be dissolved. Also, so long as the CID on the retail project is in existence, The developer will not request and the city will not approve any additional economic development incentives on the retail project property. The clock on the CID begins with the approval of the CID and not with the beginning of the collection of the CID sales taxes out there. So in this manner, the developer is incentivized to develop the property as soon as feasibly possible. So like we did on the last request, summarize the cost-benefit analysis prepared by Ferdy, presented here are again some numbers of significance. The total project cost is $13.67 million. The developer is asking for reimbursement of $3.6 million of the CID eligible expenses. The retail project together is estimated to generate $3.7 million of CID sales tax over the 22-year period. The analysis indicated that there will be a total of $1.67 million of real estate property taxes realized for the city over the 22-year period and $6.5 million of city sales tax generated. As we discussed earlier, it has been determined that the new development does fall into the district and therefore will contribute to the payment of the existing economic development bonds. After that, the tax increment in real estate property tax will belong to the city. So pretty straightforward. Again, tonight you have three options. The first option would be to approve the resolution for the CID petition, to set a hearing, same hearing of November 22nd on the creation of that CID. Second option would be to decline the petition for the CID by not approving that resolution, or you can provide other direction to us. Bond counsel Gina Rekoff with Gilmar Bell, as well as City Attorney John Byrd, have reviewed all the documentation submitted. The owners have signed the petitions and all other aspects of it comply with requirements of KSA 12-6A26 and the city's economic development policy. Therefore, it's the recommendation of city staff that you approve the resolution calling for a public hearing to consider the creation of the CID requested.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2016-007, calling and providing for the giving of notice of public hearing on November 22nd, 2016 on the advisability of creating the Hayes Investors Community Improvement District.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any questions? Nothing? I guess a question I would ask or suggestion is, I like the idea, you know, what we've heard might be coming, but I think that's the angst that the community has is where we're approving something, you know, before we approve for the hotel. I guess my thing is I hope we don't have to wait 3 years before we know what's coming, because we, you know, we did this with the mall and, you know, haven't really seen a lot, even though it started to look nice. We haven't heard a lot, and my whole goal is we would be, you know, bring some retail to our community to get our sales tax where they need to be. So I just, you know, hopefully in good faith you'll let us know as soon as possible. I would appreciate it. Call for the vote. All in
Mr.
favor?
Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I'll be voting no. 3 reasons.
Okay.
Number one, this is the second time with the well. We were promised this development when the Home Depot was built. Second, when the Home Depot was built, the commission asked and received a letter of intent from the retailer that they would occupy the building. We have no letters of intent tonight. Third, and the most troubling, is we have a lot of commercial vacancies, not just on Main Street or Vine, but we have a almost completely vacant shopping center with over 10,000 square feet contiguous space. We have a Hastings that's a little over 10,000 square feet, it's going to be vacant. We have a mall that has over 6,000 square feet vacant. Now this is a much bigger building, and so they'd say, well, we're creating a bigger building. The mall has just as much vacant right now. And they've received incentives. The others that I mentioned received no incentives at all. So it's really, in this case, a renter's market, not an owner's market. And so even with the incentive, this is going to be tough. And I would like to see a letter of intent, but I'm just going to vote no.
You made good points.
I mean, I agree with what you said. I think that, in my opinion, the 36-month time limit on the CID, I think, accounts and makes up for some of that. My opinion, you know, if nothing happens in 36 months and nothing's built, then we're really out nothing. And then I think that also then that, unfortunately, then moving into the future, if that would be the case, I think that then that makes it a bad situation moving forward to talk about this type of incentive moving forward after that point in time. So, but yeah, I'll be voting yes.
I agree with you 100% with Commissioner Meyer, and I think it's a very good faith gesture from the developer, because it was not us that asked for the 36 months, it was them that put that in there. So I do want to point that out, that, and if, like Commissioner Meyer said, if nothing happened in 36 months, then the city's out nothing. If something does happen, we could potentially make a lot of sales tax off of this and bring people in that left shopping in Hayes to go to Salina for their sporting goods and different shopping experiences in Salina. If we can draw some of them back, we have to do something, because our sales tax is continually declining. And I hope that this isn't going to be the answer for everything, but it's potentially going to help out with our sales tax problem and bring people back. So I think it's a good thing, and I think that was a very good gesture of good faith. And also, I would like to kind of mirror what you said earlier about the process this time, and the things that we've done with economic development to make it easier and a better process. This has been so much more pleasant to deal with than anything we've done in the past, and that really goes to the economic development group. I want to say thank you there, and to the bond council for what they do to make this process so much better. If we would have had this process in place a year ago, we'd have a travel center out on Exit 157, in my belief. So
Yeah, and I'll tag on to that just a little bit, because I think that the process is good, and I think that this is the result of the changes that we made earlier this year to our economic development policy. So my hope would be that this would be an action that maybe future developers can look at and believe in, and know that the city of Hayes is open for business.
Well, we appreciate it too, if I may, because from working with Aaron, working with Kim, I mean, we do a lot of work at our law firm, a lot of different types of projects in communities all over Kansas and Missouri. And
Identify yourself.
oh, sorry, Ferdinand Neiman with White Gas Law Firm, representing Christie Development Associates. And just, it's nice to work with a municipality that is welcoming, has a good form, a good application that already covers all the issues, so that we don't get asked 50 times for another question, another item. We want to be transparent, want to be partners with the city. Commissioner Swaller, understand your points. Other commissioners understand those as well. It's obviously in our best interest to complete this development, lease these projects out as soon as possible to the best tenants as possible. So we're working on that right now. Dave's been active in that. And like I mentioned last week, he was at the ICSC conference in Chicago, looking for tenants. So I don't anticipate a 3-year. We say 3 years is the end. You're not going to find out a week left. I mean, obviously, if there's not something under construction a month before, 2 months before, the writing's on the wall. Our goal is to get this done as soon as possible, and getting the hotel up, getting JT Travel Plaza occupied and going, that's only going to help. So
We appreciate that. Commissioner Swaller, if I was in the seat 10 years ago and went through that, I think I'd probably have the same feeling. But I wasn't, and like these guys have said, we've changed our developmental policy, and I'm hoping that it works this time. There's no guarantee, but I don't think there's anything that we're going to lose. Like we talked about, we have 3 years for you guys to get it done, and I believe you guys will get it done. We want you guys here. We need you guys here. So we appreciate what you guys are doing, and see what happens.
Commissioner, may I speak?
Absolutely.
You mind if I stand up over there so I can?
Identify yourself.
I can't. It's hard for me to think sitting down. Sitting on my brain. David Christie with Christie Development. Commissioner Swaller, good, nice to see you. Toby. Great. Really appreciate the opportunity to do this private-public partnership. We've had a really good run the last several years. About 2 years ago, we built $80 million worth of construction in retail centers. We're currently building an 80,000 square foot power center in Belton, Missouri, doing a project in Lee Summit. So we're very, very busy. It has been very detrimental to me, and I want you guys to understand that, to have this ground vacant. It's been very disappointing for me. I'm putting money in. I own 35% of the equity position in the hotel to get the hotel built. So I love Hayes. I think it needs a hotel. I stayed at Hayes Inn that I didn't even know existed. It was the last hotel in Hayes when I drove through to my home in Vale. I said, let's just get a room in Hayes, and every single room was full. I'm calling John Ferguson at home saying, John, I need a room. He's calling here saying everything's full. And so I ended up getting like one of the last rooms. And I don't know if this is the 4th of July weekend or something, but it's just crazy. So we're excited about it. Toby knows that we sold a piece of property to a gentleman that was going to build a Buffalo Wild Wings on the main pad there, and he chose not to do that. So this is really exciting. I met with one of the best retailers in the country in Vegas at 4 o'clock on Wednesday on this site. And they have a signed letter of intent to go in the mall, and they showed me the letter of intent and said, I'd rather come to your deal. And I said, well, I can't compete at the rents that Gabriel Jidell, who I know, who I've sold property to. I can't compete under new construction levels at that deal. So the good news for Hayes is you guys are getting a national retailer that's going to be very exciting, that's going to help the mall or help me on that. And so I specifically went there. I'm building 2 other stores for them. And if you guys have the opportunity to have confidence and look at how much stuff we built, that's what we do. It's very frustrating for us, and we actually take it personally when we can't finish a project. We're getting ready to re-tenant a big building we had vacant for 5 years in Pittsburgh where we put Home Depot. And so, and Commissioner Swallow, I appreciate you remembering that I provided a letter of intent from Target.
Yep.
So,
No, that's Home Depot. Target wouldn't commit, and you were wise, you said, no, I can't.
but I had it signed by them.
That's true.
And Depot I had a contract with them, obviously, and they designated for me to come out here and handle this for them. So, you know, I recently built 2 Academy Sports in Kansas markets. I built a Dick's Sporting Goods 2 years ago in St. Joe. We do all these national tenants, and we love it, and we love what we do. And this gives us the ability to go out and say, I can do a below-market rent deal to subsidize you to come into Hayes, because if you, and Commissioner Schwaller was on the commission at that time, but if you remember, I'm sure you do, when I said that Home Depot's regular sales are $40 million per store. And if they're going to do 30 or 25 in Hayes, they can't, they build the same store that they build in Overland Park, Kansas. And they can't operate it on those, with those projections and those yields if they're not going to get the sales that they need. And the only thing that they're not going to skimp on their building, they're not going to skimp on their product. The only thing that they can save money on is the land cost and the site work. And the commission at the time was wise enough to do that. And I think it's been a good deal, and I've heard that it may pay off early, which is exciting, you know, for all of us. So, but I'm excited about putting this property into play, and we made the deal with the JT Plaza. They were good people to deal with. Mike Downing, the local realtor here, helped us greatly to get that done, and we're excited about being a partner with Ferguson Properties and getting that hotel built, which we think will help. And I have 2 signed letters of intent currently on this property for about 35,000 feet, and I'm working on 1 other anchor, and then I can start the project. And so I'm really excited about this. I'm not here to waste your time, and we appreciate your courtesy in hearing what we're trying to accomplish, and believe me, we will give it a monumental effort to get it done. Any questions?
We appreciate that very much. And I, you know, me personally, I've got some good friends in Garden City that, you know, I talk with quite a bit. But if I never had to hear anybody say, oh, you know, Garden City's getting everything and Hayes is getting nothing, I'd be the happiest person in Hayes. So it's whatever you're bringing, I don't know what it is, but I mean, it'd be good for a community. You know, the more sales tax dollars we have coming in, we can, you know, repair more roads, take care of infrastructure that we've all kind of doubled down on. But we got to get it to where, you know, not just people from western Kansas, people from other parts of the state want to come here and shop, and hopefully this will be a big part of that.
And I'd like to thank Toby. We've worked together on several different projects, and he was very transparent about what we needed to do to be successful in our application, and that you guys were going to revise your process so that it made it more user-friendly for developers to come in. It's, you know, obviously not easy to get here. Came out here, you know, on a plane so that we could be efficient, and of our time and so on. So we appreciate your courtesy, and Toby, your leadership, and if there's anything, our phone's available. Call us night or day, and it's been a pleasure working with Aaron, and we're just happy to be here and happy to get this project started.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anything else? All in favor of the CID request?
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Passes 4-1. Next item on the agenda, resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation refunding bond series 16A.
Once again, Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. I'm not going to go through my presentation I did last week because tonight we have David Arterberry with George K. Baum with us, and he's going to present on this refunding.
I've got a handout here if you want. I'll take one and pass it down. The handout is a lot of numbers. I think they're very similar to probably what you saw last week. And I'm going to go through it in just a minute. I won't go through it in a lot of detail. I'm just going to point out highlights. But please, if you do see something as I'm going through the numbers or as I'm going through anything else here that you have any questions at all about, just feel free to chime in. Don't feel that you have to wait to the end to ask any questions. As I'm sure Kim discussed with you last week, what we're looking at doing here is refinancing, or as we call it in the municipal bond business, refunding 5 of the city's old outstanding bond issues. Basically what that would involve is issuing new bonds and using the proceeds from that new bond issue to pay off those 5 old issues. The process to do a refinancing like this, there's 3 steps that you typically have to go through. The first step is to review the refinancing plan, and you did that last week, and I'm going to go over it again real briefly here. That's the first step. The second step is to adopt what we refer to as a sale resolution or a go-to-market resolution, where you officially authorize us and staff and legal counsel, Gilmore and Bell. I think Gina Rieckhoff might need to have a street named after her in the city. But to go out and offer for the sale of the bonds. The third step would then come it's scheduled to occur at your November 22nd meeting, and at that time we would have actually sold bonds, and we'll return to you with the results of the sale and a final bond ordinance and resolution that if the sale results look good, you would adopt to actually lock in the interest rates and the savings. So this isn't the final step in the process, but it's a big step because next time we come back, assuming interest rates hold, we'll be asking you to take final action to lock in interest rates. As far as the refinancing goes, the handout that I presented to you, on the first 5 pages, you'll see the 5 old issues that we're planning on refinancing. And for each of them, I highlighted when those bonds could get called, as well as the principal amount outstanding and the average coupon rate or interest rate. And kind of as a summary, there's 5 old issues that total a principal amount of $5,760,000, and they carry an average rate aggregate of the 5 issues of about 4.05%. If you look on page 6 of the handout, you can see what I estimate based on current interest rate levels that the new refinancing issue might look like. The par amount of that issue is about $5,995,000. It's more than what's outstanding because we have to pay issuance costs, underwriters' fees. We have to create an escrow to pay off the bonds. So that accounts for the higher principal amount. But even with that higher principal amount, the interest rates are so much lower that we still generate savings. And I'll show that in just a second. But the overall borrowing cost on this new issue, when you factor in all the different costs and the interest, the coupons on the bonds, is about 1.9%. Again, based on current interest rate levels. So about half of the interest rate on the outstanding bonds. The next page there, you see a savings report. And you can see on the right-hand side here, this just compares year to year, the payments on the new bonds compared to the payments or the debt service on the old bonds. And you can see that we expect that the payments will probably drop somewhere between $55,000 and $60,000 per year for the next, 10 or 11 years. And generate total savings of about $573,000. A lot of times in our business, we like to look at that in terms of today's dollars, a present value measure, and compare that present value number to the amount of debt that's being refinanced. In this case, the present value benefit, when looked at that way, is about 9.1% of the amount of debt that's being refinanced. Typically, I think Kim had mentioned this last week. Typically, in our industry, if you've got present value savings of about 3 to 5%, that's a justifiable level to proceed with the refinancing. Here, we're almost double the high end of that number. So now, that savings isn't going to be exactly determined until the bonds are sold. As I mentioned, scheduled on the 22nd. And interest rates could change between now and then. I spoke with Kim earlier today, and we were trying to say, okay, well, we need to have some guidance here in terms of what a minimum level, acceptable level of savings is, because if interest rates go up and the savings goes down, I don't want to come back on the 22nd and present to you some final savings that is unacceptable to you, that's too small. So what we thought is, given that 3 to 5% present value sort of, target, and given that we're almost double that, we thought maybe that a reasonable level of savings to get would be on the high end, that a minimum target of 5%. Interest rates, just to let you know, could rise from these current levels about 0.8 of a percentage point. And would still be able to get that 5% targeted savings. So I think that 5% is a nice savings figure. I think it's also very achievable. I don't know what's going to happen in a couple of weeks, but I would hope that 0.8 of a percentage point interest rate move is a pretty big move to occur within just 3 or 4 week period of time. So that was our thought. If you have any input on that minimum targeted savings, now would be a good time to talk about it. On the remaining pages, there's just some details about the escrow cash flow, some of the old bonds that aren't callable that we're not refinancing, as well as the sources and uses. So that's kind of a summary. The principal amount of this issue, you'll see in these numbers, $5,995,000. That could change based on how the bids come in. A lot of bidders these days seem to be liking to submit premiums with their bids. If you do get a premium with your bid, that will be used to reduce the bond issue size. I suspect when all is said and done, the bond issue size is going to be a little bit less than the $5,995,000 figure. So.
I might add a couple of things. I mentioned last week, I wanted to mention again, we're not changing any of the maturities, so we're keeping the maturities the same on these issues as they were originally. And then before you, another piece of paper, you should have the front page of the resolution you'll be voting on tonight. There was a slight change in a couple of the issues. Gilmore Bell sent that to me today. They found a typo in a couple of the dates, so they changed that. So that should be before you, and we got that in the packet for signature tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve resolution number 2016-008, a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of general obligation refunding bonds through 2016-A of the City of Hays, Kansas.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Schwaller, second by Commissioner Jones. Any comments?
Good work, excellent work. In the ideal world, we take our money, we pay the bonds off and pay ourselves back. Can't do it, different sources of money. I know how that works, but this is good, and anything we can do to save, and even those minimal savings that we will, depending on who's elected in a couple of weeks, we'll see what happens to interest rates. That will be interesting.
Just out of curiosity, who typically buys these types of bonds? Financial institutions, I'm assuming.
Yeah, you know, on an issue like this, since the city is issuing less than $10 million of bonds, these will be designated as bank qualified, which makes them really, really attractive to Kansas and really banks in other states. So I suspect that will be a lot of the purchasers of them. When we're actually selling these bonds, the people that will be bidding on them, the firms that underwrite them, that actually then turn around and would resell them to the banks, it'll be firms like United Missouri Bank, Country Club Bank, probably R.W. Baird, so regional banks and brokers will bid on it.
I think Commerce plans to be in that.
And Commerce, I'm sure they'll be bidding too, yeah.
Country Club is generally more.
Good. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, A Street Reconstruction Design Contract.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Brown. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. The capital improvement plan within the 2017 budget included a project to reconstruct 8th Street from Milner to Vine. In order to complete construction in 2017, it is necessary to begin engineering design at this time. Staff has solicited proposals from qualified engineering firms to prepare plans. The lowest cost proposal was presented by Driggs Design Group of Hayes at a cost of $68,880. Back in March, staff presented a plan for street rehabilitation projects. The number one priority for streets to be reconstructed was 8th Street from Milner to Vine. This section of street is approximately 2,200 feet long, and 8th Street just west of Milner was reconstructed in 2016. 8th Street is classified as a 3-lane minor arterial road constructed of concrete with curb and gutter. Much of the pavement is cracked and deteriorating. The curb and gutter is in disrepair, and the existing sidewalk and curb ramps are not in compliance with current ADA standards. The plan is to reconstruct the pavement, curb and gutter, and sidewalk in its current configuration, bringing everything into compliance with the ADA guidelines. The project also includes the upgrade of water services along this section of 8th Street. This particular project is in the 2017 budget and has been in the capital improvement program queue since 2011. It has an estimated total project cost of $2.5 million. Staff solicited fee-based proposals from engineering firms for design services on September 15th and received proposals from 6 engineering firms. Driggs Design Group of Hayes presented the lowest cost proposal at a cost of $68,880. The scope of services includes engineering design, bid letting, pre-construction meetings, and review of contractor submittals. Inspection of the project is to be completed in-house. Additional technical services during construction, if necessary, would be additional work or done under a separate contract. The project has a budgetary cost of $2.5 million to be funded out of City Commission reserves. An additional $100,000 was budgeted in water capital to upgrade the water services. The $68,880 cost of design engineering is included in the $2.5 million estimate and would be paid out of Commission capital reserves. The current design schedule calls for a bid opening in March with construction during the 2017 construction season. The Commission has the options to authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with Driggs Design Group, provide alternate direction, or to do nothing. Staff recommends the City Commission authorize the city manager to enter the agreement with Driggs Design Group, and the action requested is to enter an agreement with Driggs Design Group in the amount of $68,880 for engineering services related to the design of the reconstruction of 8th Street from Milner to Vine to be funded from Commission capital reserves.
I would move that we authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with Driggs Design Group in the amount of $68,800 for engineering services related to the design of the reconstruction of 8th Street from Milner to Vine to be funded from Commission capital reserves.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Swaller. Questions, guys?
I don't have a question, I would comment.
Comment?
I think to be able to move this up in the capital improvement plan is pretty awesome. This needs to be done. It's a project that's needed to be done for a while, and be able to move it up is, I know for me, it just shows how responsible the city's been previous to, Commissioner Meyer and I coming in, that we get to move these projects up and get to be a part of it. It's pretty amazing because this is a $2.5 million project that we're essentially paying cash for, and being able to move it up is something that the city of Hayes should be proud of. And I want to thank the commission before us and the city staff and whatnot to be able to do that.
Thank you.
I really want to echo that, because when is the last time you saw a story in the newspaper about government moving something up and paying cash for it? That's a $2.5 million project. I don't know. I guess maybe we've just become acclimated to this, but we didn't get here by accident, that's for sure. So it's been forethought and actions previous to Commissioner Jones and myself. So good work to the previous commissioners and to city staff.
Yeah, I would agree. I've said that since I've been on here. About 4 years ago, the commissioners before made my job a lot easier, and it's to do this, and Toby, under your leadership, the stuff we've done the last, to me, 4 years has been pretty awesome. So we appreciate what they've done and what we're doing now. And I do have a question. Is it too early to know approximately how long this will take, the process?
It depends if it rains.
Well, excluding.
Right. A lot of the details were only, entering an agreement to begin the design process. But a project of this nature will take several months to build. And the design will include construction phasing. And Buck Driggs is here in the audience tonight. And we had talked previously, just in brainstorming this, about how construction might occur. And we might do this project slightly different than we did, say, on 13th Street, where we had stopped, shut down a block at a time. And I think this project lends itself well to doing one half of the project, keeping one lane open one direction, probably westbound from Vine Street, so people can come off Vine Street, head west, and then going east, they'll have to take 6th Street back or find some other alternate route back to the east. But I think that would allow for better access to businesses along the route during construction.
Well, I know we did 13th Street, which you can't control a lot, and the business owners always said your communication with them was great. But we had some business owners that have been around forever, and they had some pretty important anniversaries scheduled.
Right.
And I know we did everything we could, but maybe ahead of time I had to ask some of that.
True, and we did run into some unforeseen snags on 13th Street.
Right.
8th Street has less potential for those types of snags because we're not doing as much of the underground work and storm sewer work as we had on 13th Street.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're going to keep part of it open too, or plan to anyways, because on the 13th Street, 11th, 12th, 14th, 15th, they took a real beating from the excess traffic on there. So, maybe that would mitigate some of that as well.
Be sure to notify AT&T tomorrow at 8 a.m. so that at least they have it done by 2020. Because we know AT&T will be the very last utility to even notice we're doing something.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. 5-0. Next item on the agenda, Heart of America, second edition contract.
Commissioners, Greg Sun, Public Works Director. And this is a presentation of the Heart of America second edition. Before you, I'm going to present the 4 different subjects that are before you tonight and then ask you to consider the motions that are necessary afterwards so that it is a presentation that's easier to follow. The first edition of this project also exists in the same area, but this This is the area, this is just off of Commerce. And if you notice the next slide, this area right here is the Glassman property. That was the first addition. And then down here is the Army Reserve Center. So this development will fill in between those. And it will fill in on Commerce and on Commerce Boulevard. This is the plat that is being proposed for this. It will add 3 different lots plus a stretch of road through the project. This is what the final plat that's being proposed looks like, setting on the preliminary plat that was approved back in '08 by the Planning Commission. So you can see that there are plans over time to continue to build this out. After you consider the plat, the next issue to discuss or to consider with this project is annexation of the property. So you would consider the plat, and then the annexation will mention the plat in the annexation document. The third issue is a benefit district. The developer is proposing to have 100% of the cost of this development paid for through a benefit district. They will pay 30% down, and the remainder, 70%, would be assessed to the 3 properties that are in this district. There's approximately 781 feet of street, water, and sewer in this project. As discussed during the work session, this project will not include any curb and gutter or sidewalk. When it was proposed last week, I told you it was a 30-foot wide street. Because there's no curb and gutter, it makes it a 25-foot wide street. So it's 12.5-foot lanes. There's no oversizing cost to the city. And because there will be no curb and gutter or sidewalk plan, the project will probably cost less than the estimated cost. This is what the project will look like. You can see the road ditches on either side, so there's a way for the stormwater to run off. One of the things that this will have is gravel shoulders, so it won't just end at the concrete. It will blend out and make it hold the road a little bit better. The petition amount for this project is $540,000. As I said, the city share is nothing. The developer pays 30% down in cash, and then the remaining 70% would be assessed to the 3 different properties, with Lot 3 being by far the largest property. The fourth issue before you is the engineering services contract for this project. And the cost of the engineering services is not to exceed $40,533.62. And I talked to Mr. Driggs, I exchanged an email with him this afternoon and asked him if dropping the curb and gutter and the sidewalk would have any effect on the design costs, and he didn't think so at the time because he still has to plan the shoulders and everything else and the road ditches. And so it's the whole roadway design, regardless whether you put in design with curb and gutter or not. So the design probably won't change in cost, but the project.
You couldn't get it down to 60,000?
Well, he's here.
I mean, Sean, math, but you need to go the other way.
Oh, no, I'm my bad. I'm thinking of the wrong one. Back up here.
I'm surprised you didn't jump up and say,
I'll take that, and I'll see you another 20.
Thinking of the wrong one, sorry. Strike that.
The options for this project are this issue is to approve all of the motions recommended on the next slide, to deny any or all of the motions, or to provide other direction to staff. So these are the 4 motions that I'm recommending to you this evening. The first one is a resolution accepting the final plat for the Heart of America Second Edition. So if you could take these one at a time.
Go ahead, I was going to move to approve resolution accepting the final plan of Heart of America Second Edition.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any comments?
Yeah, I want to go back this, kind of get a clearer picture on this. What's the width of the street going in there right now?
It's 45 feet.
45. And how did that come about and why? I know we were talking about that last week. You know, it's an industrial park, and we were talking about turning radiuses and all that.
That was a standard width of street a few years ago. The streets were designed far wider, and if you notice, a lot of the street is being used as parking lot.
I haven't
We
noticed
are
that.
not.
I don't notice that.
We do not believe that there's a reason to have on-street parking in a industrial zone. The businesses that develop on those properties should be providing their own parking.
Well.
And there's no
Sorry
reason to
about
have
that.
sidewalk or curb and gutter because it's not a pedestrian, I mean, yeah, it's semis and.
It's fairly limited traffic.
Right.
The semis, they're, depending on the type of development, there's likely that semis will use this property, but the road is wide enough easily for them to turn. The biggest issue when you have semis and larger vehicles is that you design the radiuses on the curves big enough that they can round it without going over the curb.
I noticed on the assessment that it was, some of the assessment is larger on some lots than others. I'm assuming that's based on the size of the lot?
Yes. One of
'Cause
them
I-
is considerably larger.
We've not done that. I don't remember that being the case with like residential lots that we've done before. Is this because it's industrial? It's different? Is that it?
And I think, wasn't there a change in the policy to?
If I may.
Sure.
There's typically 3 different ways of assessing toward a benefit district. You do each per lot, which is what we typically do in residential areas because it's simple. You can do lineal feet of frontage if you have exposure concerns, or you can do square footage of the lots, and typically in industrial areas or commercial areas like this, you're looking at that. And maybe hasn't been done recently, but we've done that in the past. And in fact, if you do the math on this, and it was run through Gilmore and Bell and vetted that out, it's actually based upon the developable area, because Lot 1, I believe, has a considerable amount of area that's not really developable because of the stormwater issues. So the assessment was proportioned based upon the developable area of the lot and not actually the actual geometric square footage of the lots.
Okay, thanks. I just noticed it was different. Was curious. Thank you.
Well, I still think he'd save us $5,000 by taking the curbs off, but. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve an ordinance annexing the Heart of America Second Edition.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Meyer. Do we need to take a vote? Do you want to take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
That's a good idea. Take that vote.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve a resolution authorizing creation of a special benefit district for Heart of America Second Edition.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Jones. I guess we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve an engineering service agreement with Drigg Design for $40,533.62 for the Heart of America Second Edition.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 5-0. Next item on the agenda, USAC E Section 205 Environmental Study. Thank you, Commissioner Cohen.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown again, Assistant Director of Public Works. In September of 2015, the City and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers entered an agreement to study the Lincoln Draw watershed in an effort to reduce the potential for flooding in the City of Hayes. Tonight, staff is presenting an update on progress thus far and seeking funding authorization for the Corps of Engineers to perform the required National Environmental Protection Act study, otherwise known as NEPA. The Lincoln Draw watershed has been identified in several past studies as needing infrastructure in place to reduce the risk of flooding through the core of Hayes. Lincoln Draw watershed floods below 19th Street from common storm events in the range of 2 to 5 years. The city staff believes the Lincoln Draw watershed is the next large-scale stormwater project to benefit the citizens of Hayes. In August 2015, the City Commission unanimously voted to authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under Section 205 program for a study of Lincoln Draw watershed. The agreement estimated the cost of the study to be $664,000, with the city and the Corps sharing the costs equally. Of the city's $332,000 share, $178,600 was projected to be paid in cash to the Corps for performance of the study, and the remaining $153,400 of the city's share was to be achieved by in-kind services provided by the city. Those in-kind services were to be achieved by hiring out survey and geotechnical work and performing an in-house NEPA study. Subsequently, Alston Associates was hired by the city to perform the survey and geotechnical work. The environmental work originally planned to be completed in-house by the city was to be performed by the former stormwater specialist who had past experience performing environmental work. However, Mr. Walters is no longer employed by the City of Hayes, leaving the city without the ability to perform the NEPA study in-house. The Corps has offered to perform the NEPA and related cultural resources study at a cost of $40,000, which is the amount previously agreed upon as the value the city could have claimed by doing the environmental work in-house. Since the city can no longer benefit from the $40,000 of in-house NEPA study, the $325,000 already authorized in the capital improvement program for this study is slightly less than required. Therefore, staff is requesting authorization to have the Corps conduct the environmental study and to authorize an additional $7,000 in capital spending authority to meet the 50% city share for this project. At this time, staff would also like to update the City Commission on the time schedule for the study. Survey and geotechnical work is complete. Over the next few months, the Corps will be completing all of the existing condition analysis, and in January, we will be having a workshop to review options for improvements. A public information meeting is tentatively scheduled for August, with the final report due in September. Commission has the options of authorizing $40,000 to contract with the Corps to conduct the required NEPA and cultural resources study and allocate an additional $7,000 to achieve the $332,000 local match, 50% match for the city. As we mentioned before last week at the work session, doing nothing really quite isn't an option. At this point, we would entertain an alternate direction if you have it.
I'll make a motion to authorize $40,000 contract with Army Corps of Engineers to conduct the required NEPA and cultural resource study and allocate an additional $7,000 out of stormwater capital reserve towards the city's share of the U.S. Corps of Engineers 205 study on the Lincoln Draw watershed.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Swaller. Any comments?
Can we just hire somebody that's qualified to do that?
We're hiring the Corps.
This is something sort of on this, but different. Back when we did all the levee remediation, all that, did they ever come back and inspect that, or what was the final on that? We removed trees and had some other areas of breaching, and I never did. I don't recall ever hearing any kind of a follow-up on that that whole project.
Yeah, they typically do that on a 5-year rotation. The Corps comes around and inspects every 5 years. And they had done that, so that probably would have been in 2000, I can't remember exactly, but probably 13 or something like that, which would have been, it would have sort of triggered what we did there, or in conjunction with that. Obviously, we did what they recommended, and they haven't come back to inspect. I think they would expect that when they come back in that 5-year increment, whether that'll be in 18 or sometime about then.
But didn't they take like core samples and stuff like that? I mean, I thought that was one of the...
No, the Corps' biggest concern was the proximity of the trees
Right.
to the levee in terms of
The root would die, decay, create a breach in the levee.
right, or even worse yet, during a flood event, a large tree would blow over,
Hit the
taking out
levee.
half the levee with
Yeah,
it.
then come on.
And so we did, during the work we did, we actually, compacted it back and took the density testing and stuff that made sure that we were compacting the levee back properly during construction.
Is
No, the
that-
Corps is not.
There was no project post fallout by the Corps. It's just the next time they come back in for their inspections, they'll note if there's any deficiencies, and that's where we'll derive the benefit from replacing the facilities that run through the Corps, making the stuff east of Main Street in compliance with the Corps standards, removing the trees, all of that. Hopefully that'll be noted on our inspection.
Who'd we
No longer
get the
deficient.
cost share from on the cap on there?
Well, that was KDOT.
Right.
That was, okay,
Yeah,
that's
that was
part, that's
KDOT.
right, that was part of an ICE-T grant, I believe. Okay. Just refreshing my memory. Air's thinner down here, I guess.
On your schedule, what happens between January and June? There's a pretty big gap on,
Yeah, that's, when we go through the workshop of selecting possible alternatives, then they'll take about that 6 months for them to model and design. Well, it's called a study. It actually takes it to about 65% design. So if we go forward with the project, when we go forward with the project, the design required to finalize that and take it to construction is minimal. So there's quite a bit of design work that goes into that. Once we review the various different options, because we look at the back at the map, and I know this isn't a great map, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different locations. The Corps is probably we're probably gonna narrow that down to 4 or less. So we're looking at the 4, and then so with that workshop, we'll be looking at all those different things and possible ways of doing it and getting the best bang for the buck, for lack of a better term. And as I mentioned in the schedule, we talked about the existing conditions. So right now, and I'm expecting it any day now, I think it's due to me by the 10th for sure, but they were expecting it possibly earlier than November 10th, will be their model of the existing conditions, saying, okay, here's what will happen. If you don't do anything, here's what could potentially happen. And here's how the watershed reacts, updating it based upon all the development that's occurred since the 80s and when the last time that was modeled and all that stuff. So we'll be having that, and then we'll look at, okay, we're going to plop in these different improvements in different locations and then see how does that affect the potential or mitigate flooding potential. And then we'll look at where's the best place and how do we do this, and then they'll work on moving forward with those alternatives that are selected out to be the most feasible.
What happens after we get the final report in September?
At that time, we'll have a cost estimate and time frame for construction, and we'll have to Corps will have to secure the funding. They'll be asking us for the funding, and then probably begin with enter into an agreement as such to accomplish this. As I mentioned last week at the work session, the program itself is capped at $7 million, so the project would not exceed $7 million. Personally, I don't think we'll get close to, I don't think I don't think the project will cost that much, limiting it to the 4 that the Corps has indicated that they would advance. And then, we'd have to secure local funding, and then first step, once we've solidified agreements and funding, would be to go out and acquire access easements, property right, acquisition right away, that sort of thing.
And one thing different about this study, which we mentioned last week, in the past we did a study, we didn't have the funding. Where now we have the funding to do it, to make sure it gets done.
Yeah, and John hit on something pretty important. This is gonna result in essentially a 60% design for a project. Most of the studies the city has done in the past has just been paying engineers to say, what could we do? And they've done very high-level overviews of, well, you could build a 22nd Street diversion, or you could do this, or you could do this, and here's some cost estimates, and that's kind of where it was left at. And then the cost estimates are always extremely expensive, and we had no revenue coming in on the stormwater side. So that's kind of why it didn't go anywhere. And then the study get put on the shelf, and then a few years later somebody would say, well, what can we do on stormwater? And we'd drag the old studies up. And part of this, before this even kicked off, on the Corps' dime, they took all of those old studies and they went through them and they looked at all of the pros and cons and the estimates made at the time and the cost benefit analysis, and they looked at that and they came up and said, this is probably your best bang for the buck right here. Out of all the studies you've looked at in the past, this is your best. If you want to look at spending dollars to reduce the possibilities of flooding, this is your best bang for the buck.
As I said last week, this is probably the one vote that I regret the most. I wish that I hadn't gone along with it, mostly just because what I fear is that it's just going to be a study of what we could do and then nothing's ever going to happen from it. I understand that the funding may be there, but there's other things that can still get in the way of this, as in acquiring wide array or finding landowners and complying and doing this and that. So I hope I'm wrong. It's not a reason to vote against it tonight. We have to finish and follow up with what we said, but I feel like I have to say that I regret doing this. I suppose that's a funny thing to say, that you regret on something for flood control, but it's just my fear is that we're just wasting money on a study that's never going to be completed. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but
Well, I hope for the safety of the community you are wrong, but
there you go. The political opponent saying that I'm against flood control. So there you go. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. It's right there. I'm just surprised it didn't come from the guy on the end.
I've been designing the postcard in my mind.
His will be better, trust me.
It'll be you standing on a little island, waiting for my boat to come over and pick you up.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Getting deep in here, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Lance, do you have anything?
I happen to agree with Commissioner Meyer. I think that the studies have been done and nothing's ever been done past the study. So I hope that that our regrets towards pushing this study forward, there's a project at the end of it that gets accomplished.
On a serious note, I would like to add something serious to maybe alleviate a little bit of your apprehension there. In 1990, whatever, when I was on the city commission, we started looking at the long-term water solutions and so forth, and ultimately in 1993 purchased the R9 Ranch. I would tell you that up to that point there was a whole room full of water studies over there, and so some of the same concerns you have right now were brought forth then, like, oh my God, here goes another study. In this particular case, with the ultimate purchase of the ranch, we had a water study panel made up of citizens, not only from Hayes but also Russell, and looked at numerous options, probably I think 13 or 14. How many?
More.
45.
But, well, at any rate, and then trimmed it down to a certain number. Then eventually, the commission voted on that. And there was a lot of consternation in the community and criticism of that. But the fact of the matter was, prior to that, oftentimes I always remarked that the city would get almost to the finish line, and then somebody throws some doubt into it, and then they take that study and set it aside, wherever it was, Cedar Bluff, Wilson Lake, whatever. So I'm very thankful that we had a 5-man commission, 4 men, 1 woman commission that voted on that, and look where we are today. So it'd be terrible not to do this based on that, I guess, and then have a flood.
There you go, making sense again. Will you stop it? Very good point. I appreciate you making that comparison.
But I mean, that's a monumental decision to make, and sometimes you just got to look at it. So I withdraw my postcard. Threat.
All right, I would like to, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 5-0. Finally, airport taxi I, is that correct? I said it right? Design contract, like I said last week.
The Airport Capital Improvement Plan in 2017 budget included a project to reconstruct Taxiway I at the Hayes Regional Airport in 2019. Recently, the FAA offered the city the opportunity to accelerate the project for funding and construction in 2017. In order to complete construction in 2017, it is necessary to begin engineering design at this time. The city's airport engineer, Burns & McDonnell, has prepared a work authorization in the amount of $77,000 for the City Commission's consideration. Taxiway I at the Hayes Regional Airport is the easternmost taxiway running north and south in the hangar area, as shown between the 2 yellow arrows on this screen. It is the last of the old asphalt taxiways. All the other taxiways on the airport have either been built new or reconstructed to concrete. Taxiway I has severe drainage problems with a weak subgrade. The asphalt is failing and requires continual maintenance to prevent potholing and FOD development. A project to reconstruct Taxiway I has been on the airport CIP for several years. In the 2017 budget, the taxiway is scheduled for replacement in 2019, as I previously mentioned, and the FAA has offered funding to rebuild this taxiway in 2017. Under the Airport Improvement Program, the FAA would reimburse 90% of the project costs to the city. One requirement of the FAA is to use an approved engineer for plan and application development. Burns & McDonnell Engineers is the city's airport engineering consultant under a master service agreement. Work authorization number 11 to that agreement is what is being considered at this time and defines the scope and fee of the design engineering services. That scope involves engineering services required to design and bid a construction project to remove the existing pavement, strengthen the base material, and install new concrete pavement. The fixed lump sum cost for design services is $77,030. Per FAA requirements, staff has accomplished an in-house fee evaluation, and following negotiations with the engineer, staff feels the fee is commensurate with the services to be provided. The FAA will reimburse the city 90% of the actual cost of the project. Schedule calls for opening bids in April of 2017 with construction to occur sometime next year. Commission has the option of approving work authorization number 11, providing alternate direction, or doing nothing. City staff recommends a motion to approve work authorization number 11 from Burns & McDonnell Engineering Company for engineering services as presented.
I would move we authorize city manager to execute work authorization number 11 with Burns and Mac, contingent on FAA approval, amount of $77,030, with the city share to be funded out of airport improvement.
Second.
Motion on the floor from Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones. Comments? Commissioner Phelps?
No.
No. Okay. I'm going to call.
It's not worth saying.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Pass 5-0. Report of the city manager.
Nothing to report?
You got Commission inquiries and comments. Commissioner Phelps.
I want to once again congratulate all our city employees that we recognized in here tonight, and also thank them for the job they do. I think that was pretty evident here with our alley cleanup, which over the years has turned into almost a work of art as far as efficiency and project done in a timely manner. And I believe it's done, is it not? Or are they still got a couple days?
Still going.
Still going. But at any rate, I've kind of seen around town, and it looks to me like a lot of people are cleaning out their garages.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was very nice to be able to recognize the city employees for their service awards.
I have two requests. Mr. City Manager, would you please have the Chief of Police provide us with an overview of the costs and benefits of providing body cameras for all officers that are on duty? I know that it's expensive. I would like his opinion on whether or not this would be a worthwhile endeavor. And second, if the finance director and you could do a little bit more research on that Transportation Development District. The records that I have, and I've talked to those that serve, our recollection of the scope and the length of that district is a little bit different than what we've been hearing. I just want to make sure that it isn't on for 20 years solid and won't pay for 41st Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good point. Commissioner Meyer.
Appreciative of the alley cleanup. I put out a ton of stuff and it was all gone by Tuesday. And when I mean all gone, even, you know, the little bits and pieces, city crews just did a great job. I tell you, if people were waiting on me to haul that stuff off, they'd be waiting quite a long time. So I'm glad that the city does that. And then I don't know if any other people saw, but the Fox Pavilion is bringing in, what was the name of the guy? I don't listen to
Tracy Lawrence.
Frank Worth.
Well, and Tracy Lawrence.
Tracy Lawrence is the one I was thinking of. Yeah, so, man, that's really great to see them bring in, hopefully there'll be some more activity down there, bringing in, I shared it on Facebook, and there were people who, that are, you know, my family and stuff from Marion County that were, you know, talking about making plans to come to Hayes to see it. So I'm really glad to see that happening down there.
Speaking of that, how about that mural on the Fox? That's something down there. Did a great job.
And that's on Saturday, too.
Yep, on Saturday.
Yep, that's looking great.
But I also like to, you know, recognize, I know we recognize all the employees tonight, but that's just an awesome night when we do that. You know, I was telling my wife earlier, you know, to me, my two favorite nights is this night and the night we have all the youth come in and do their water posters. You know, just, you know, and how much they care about doing what they do, and it's always kind of nice to see. And, one other thing I'd like to address for people if they're still watching at home, I have a lot of committees that I need to appoint people to, and I've got a few people that I may be appointing soon, but if you go to HaysUSA.com, under the Government tab, and then there's many different committees that we have. If you have any interest of serving your community, I would really, you know, give me a call or call City Hall, and I'd really enjoy talking to you.
You can submit an application online, I believe.
Yes, right. Absolutely, you can. You can submit online, and it's actually very simple to do that. So, thanks to our IT department. So. And that, no executive session, please.
No.
Adjourn.
That wasn't a question, that was a...
Tell me I have a document for you all.
For me?
Oh, God, never.
Anybody said anything about a plat and dedication of Heart of America?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
How do they intend